Okay, this one's called the two-handed side shoulder clean. So in club bell level 1, we did the normal sagittal plane shoulder clean where we did our swing movement, and then as the club bell come onto the top of the shoulder, we immediately drop down into the squat. So that's our shoulder clean. So anytime we're doing a side movement, anytime you hear a side movement in the name of the exercise, it basically means we're going in that frontal plane. So it's exactly the same exercise as we did with the front shoulder clean in the sagittal plane, but this time we're going to go in that frontal plane across the body. This is what makes club bell training so unique, so different to other forms of training, is we can get into those frontal plane, transverse planes much easier than your traditional strength training, which is primarily sagittal plane, front and back, up and down. Okay, so it's exactly the same movement. So again, I'm not going to run through all the inside 180s of this, so all the inside outside variations of this exercise, just because we've covered that in the 180s and the cleans and everything else. So I'm going to run through this one a little bit quicker, but just know that there's an inside and an outside for pretty much all these different exercises that we're doing in those frontal plane movements. Okay, so when we're setting up, we're going to bring that club bell into the guard position, and then from here, I'll just run through without the club to start with actually. So from here, we're going to start in the guard position, just transferring that weight onto the opposite leg. If I'm going to cast to the inside of the body, so this is the inside shoulder clean. So I'm going to cast out, elbow lock, shoulder pack as the club bell passes the center line. Okay, it's going to do a full circle, and I'm going to catch it on the opposite shoulder. Okay, and as I catch it on the shoulder, I immediately drop down into a squat. All right, so as it reaches the shoulder, I begin to squat straight away, and that takes away some of the impacts of that club bell hitting you in the shoulder. And just making sure that you get the trap, the meaty part of the shoulder when you catch it on the shoulder, and you don't hit one of the bones here. It's really, really painful. All right, so just starting the movement off, we're going to bring it in to the guard. Remember, if the club's on the right-hand side of the body, your right hand's on top, always start in that guard position, and you'll always know which hand to have on top. So from there, just shifting the weight, we're going to do a full cast, elbow lock, and then we're going to catch it into the squat, thighs parallel with the floor, nice neutral spine, and then from there, as I come up from that squat, I'm going to cast the club bell back out, and come down, the same movement I came. So this is a really great exercise to hit the legs with that hip hinge at 45 degrees. You're working the glutes and the hammies, and then when you catch it on the shoulder, you're going into the squat, you're hitting the quads as well. So that's a full leg movement, and this will really get the heart rate high as well if you want to tackle on as a little bit of a metabolic conditioning exercise. All right, so we've done the two-handed side shoulder clean. Now we can go into the single-handed variation. So with all these exercises, you need a little bit of finesse. So it's unlike, you know, if you're doing a deadlift or a squat or a bench press, where it's maximum tension throughout the full range of movement. Club bell training is very differently. It's knowing when to be loose, when to be tight, okay, when to be switched on, when to turn it off. And with this, just have a little bit of finesse with the exercise, okay? So you don't want to grind for these exercises. Relax when you can, and then tighten up when you need to. So it's that loose, tight that you get with this style of training, whether it be the mace, the clubs, or the kettlebells. Know when to switch it on, switch it off. Okay, so we've done the two-handed variation. Now we're going to go into the single-handed variation. Movement is exactly the same. So again, we've got that 45-degree hip hinge, elbow lock. Just going to point the wrist down, shoulder pack down. As we pass the center line, we're going to catch it onto the shoulder. In this position here, I'm going to be a slight thoracic rotation to catch it, and then bring it down into the squat as I catch that club bell on the shoulder. Okay, so we'll get a few reps in. So just going to bring it into the order position here, and then rotate, and then start. So just making sure you catch that club bell on the immediate part of the shoulder as well. You don't want to catch it on the collarbone now, it's going to be really painful. So that is the single-handed side shoulder clean.